Today's lesson is all about making loaf cakes. They're a different style of cake, very simple to make, and cost a fraction of the price you'd pay on a station or in a coffee shop. First, you need a good loaf tin, and all our loaf cakes online fit this one. And this is a special parchment loaf tin liner, which the cake, once cooked, can be stored in. This is an Irish tea cake. I often refer to it as more fruit than cake because we've packed quite a lot in. You start this off the night before or at least several hours before you bake it. First, 110 grams each of currants, raisins and sultanas, along with 50 grams of mixed candied peel, go into a bowl. Why tea loaf? Because now they get soaked in 150 ml of hot tea. This is sweetened with 50 grams of demerara sugar. This can be any kind of tea, lapsang, Earl Grey, or even good old common tea. Pour the tea over the fruit and stir well. Then cover and leave to soak so they become really plump and juicy. Next day, simply add 1 beaten egg, 225 grams of self-raising flour, and 50 grams of chopped toasted pecan nuts. Now give everything a good stir, add a tablespoon of milk, and if it still feels a bit stiff and dry, just add another tablespoon of milk. That's it. Now spoon the mixture into the lined tin and then using a tablespoon dipped in water, smooth over the surface. Place the tin on a low shelf in a preheated oven and bake for 1 hour, 10 minutes, or until it feels springy in the centre. When it comes out of the oven, lift it onto a wire rack to cool. This goes down a treat at tea time with or without butter. Then, if there's any left, it's great toasted for breakfast. This next loaf cake, marmalade cake, has to be tasted to be believed. It may not be much of a looker, but wow, does it taste good. Here I'm combining 225 grams of plain flour with 3 level teaspoons of baking powder and 110 grams of dark brown sugar. Then in goes 110 grams of spreadable butter, because this is a rubbed-in mixture. So as we saw in Lesson 3, gently and lightly rub the butter into the dry ingredients, using your fingertips and lifting the mixture up high to let the air in. It will very soon look crumbly like this. Now we're adding grated zest of an orange and the same of lemon. That's followed by mixed spice, 1 level teaspoon, and then 110 grams of mixed dried fruit. Blend it together evenly, then gradually add 150 ml of milk, a little at a time. And after that, a teaspoon of malt vinegar. After a bit more mixing, finally stir in a heaped tablespoon of chunky Seville orange marmalade. And note here there's no egg in marmalade cake, which might be helpful for those with an intolerance. This cake is also baked in a liner, but it gets sprinkled with a tablespoon of demerara sugar before it goes into a preheated oven on the same shelf as before, at 180 degrees gas mark 4 for 1 hour and 15 minutes. After it has had 50 minutes, cover it loosely with a piece of foil, which will prevent the sugar from burning. Leave the cake to cool in the tin for 10 minutes, then just lift it out holding the liner to finish cooling on a wire rack. I still can't believe that something so simple can taste so sublime. Now to finish, a quick look at one of my most popular loaf cakes, and it's called banana and walnut loaf. Whisk together 225 grams of plain flour, 110 grams of caster sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 40 grams each of butter and lard, and 1 large egg. This is not a smooth mixture. It ends up looking like this, a sort of sandy texture. Now in go 4 very ripe mashed bananas. The riper they are, the better, so this is good for using them up. Next we have 50 grams of chopped walnuts and the grated zest of an orange and a lemon. And these get lightly folded into the mixture. Spoon into a lined loaf tin as before, and sprinkle on a rounded tablespoon of demerara sugar to get a nice crunchy topping. Bake in a preheated oven on the lower shelf for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Over the years, if I had £1 for every person who said they love this cake, I could probably buy a striker.